Hello, and welcome to this live stream on WebPiano Academy. I haven't live streamed for a while for several reasons, but today I am honored to have here Christina Lamberti, who is a friend of mine and will be my colleague in a festival that we are organizing with Tom Base in Florence. And I'm very excited about that because I love Florence. We both love food, we both love music. So
Yes.
we will have a lot of fun with that. And so, Christina, just tell us a little bit, who you are, what you do, and
Yes.
introduce yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Antonella. Thank you so much. Well, my name is Christina Lamberti. I'm an opera singer, entrepreneur, also a chef, big foodie. I'm mezzo-soprano now, but most of my career was actually as a soprano. Very quickly, I started very young taking lessons when I was 12, did a lot of musical theater and theater in high school growing up, a lot of chorale, and then I won actually a voice competition to a main prize to go to Westminster Choir College in Princeton. So that's where I started out my sort of vocal performance journey, and was a soprano at that point, sang in the big, beautiful choir, the symphonic choir with the great Dr. Flummerfelt, and was just had some great experiences there with Riccardo Muti, with Nabucco, and and also Leonard Bernstein with the Chichester Psalms. So it was really great. And then from there, I actually was very blessed to study with Claudia Pinza, who was Ezio Pinza's daughter. So I went and worked with her in Pittsburgh for many years, and was with the Pittsburgh Opera Center and worked with her, and was really fantastic. And then from there, I went to the Academy of Vocal Arts in Philadelphia. So I was accepted into that program, which was just, I mean, everyone knows how a fantastic AVA is, such great, brilliant artists. And it was just a wonderful time. I lived downtown in Philadelphia and sang a lot of roles there as a soprano. Fantastic coaches, and just really was like a small opera company. You just basically, you just did opera and coached with the great Christopher Makatsouris, and brilliant coaches, and my voice teacher was Bill Schumann at the time. So really fantastic training. And then from there, I was actually accepted into Merola, the San Francisco summer program, and then was then asked to be an Adler Fellow. And I was at the San Francisco Opera on fellowship for 3 years there when Lotfi Mansouri was there. So I was very honored to be able to really cover a lot of roles. I covered Carol Van Ness in Idomeneo, and went on for her in the Act 3 because she was sick. I sang Clotilda to her Norma. So it was a really great experience to be in that house. So wonderful times there. And then I covered a few things when I was finished with my Adler Fellowship in Houston Grand Opera. And then I actually went to Europe. I wanted to sort of the whole experience in Germany. So I went on a big audition tour and got accepted, sort of was asked to sing in a house in Regensburg, Germany, not far from Munich, and was sort of the house soprano there for about 3 seasons. So I sang a lot of big roles like Norma, Manon Lescaut, a lot of Mozart, Don Giovanni, La Clemenza di Tito, Otello, Un ballo maschera. So a lot of the bigger soprano roles, I was there. And then I came back. And it was sort of in that sort of financial crisis after it that everything sort of hit. And I came back and I was doing auditions, singing in Italy. I had done Manon Lescaut. And but I also was sort of segueing also into having sort of a side hustle. As singers, I think more now, especially since the whole pandemic, singers have to have a lot of different things, talking about Renaissance, that you can do, that you have to have this growth, that you're able to teach, and you're able to be an entrepreneur. I know a lot of my singer friends are in real estate, and they do so many different businesses. I mean, it's just fantastic. So sort of fast forward, I met my husband. We've now been married 6 years, Lars, and he's a classical guitarist, and we've created something called Dining with the Diva, where we go into people's homes. We cook together, like lasagna bolognese or risotto, because I trained in a lot of different restaurants and did a lot of catering. And we come in and do concerts in people's homes or in small venues. We just did one on New Year's Eve in a really beautiful retirement community up in Connecticut. And it was a really special night. I sing jazz, I sing Broadway, I sing a lot of opera with like big orchestral backing tracks because a lot of the time I don't have a piano in the house. And then Lars is a classical guitarist, so we do a lot with classical guitar, Spanish, some jazz, those type of things. So it's just sort of, that's my sort of where I am now. That's sort of the journey that I took. I'm also then switched and transitioned to mezzo-soprano, which I believe I probably was always a sort of swish mezzo, but I sang these sort of roles. But I think the mezzo is where my
Yeah.
voice really lives, and I feel my most comfortable I ever have. So I think it was a great sort of journey where I am now, and still on the journey because I'm still singing roles. I sang in Rigoletto. I did Maddalena in Buffalo and on tour. So different sort of segueing into different mezzo roles and learning new roles. So it's sort of an interesting sort of transition to go from soprano into a mezzo at this point in my life and career. So that's sort of a bit about me in a nutshell, sweetheart. Yeah,
A little bit, just a
a
little
little
bit.
bit, un poco. Yeah,
Un poco, yes.
yeah,
But now, in terms of Renaissance, right? What does
yes,
it
sweetheart.
mean that to you? So to me, it means that I don't know. I'm painting something, and then I'm writing
Yes,
something, and I'm
sure.
playing the piano. I'm
Yeah,
composing. I am an entrepreneur myself.
yeah,
I'm making videos, editing videos, making
sure.
recordings, editing recordings.
Yes,
You know?
yes, yes, yes. Yeah. No, I think that's true. I think you have to find, I think Renaissance is a lot about curiosity too. You have to be very curious about things and sort of expand yourself, not just, I mean, because back in the day when I was at AVA and Adler, I didn't think I'd ever teach voice, right? I thought, oh no, I'll just be out and I'll never teach voice. And here I am now teaching a lot of vocal students anywhere from the age of 6 all the way up to 60. And I'm teaching anywhere from on a daily basis, some classical, some Italian songs, a little bit of opera, but a lot of it is a lot of Broadway, a lot of sort of jazz, a lot of contemporary, a
Yeah.
lot of pop music, which is a whole new world for me. These students come in and they're like, "Do you know Taylor Swift?" And I'm like, "Wow, okay." So, it's sort of because you're teaching in places where they're not necessarily, classically trained or want to go that route, or they're working on things in schools, and you have to sort of, be able to be very flexible. I think that's a big thing, and sort of have your mind be open to what's
Yeah.
possible and say, oh, I don't teach that, or I can't, because I think singing, it really covers all sort of genres. You can teach a good singing technique and still apply it to every sort of genre that you do, I believe. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have the same experience. And
Yeah.
when I was trained in a conservatory, I would have never thought that I would be an entrepreneur, first of all.
Right,
I
right.
was, my idea was that, I was becoming this great concert pianist.
Yes,
And
of
then
course. Yes, exactly, exactly.
uh,
Yeah,
give concerts all over the world, and
sure.
then have everything set up for me, and I would have never had to teach anybody or
Right,
anything. And so I was never into entrepreneurship
right.
until my dad, who wasn't or who became an entrepreneur at the end of his
Yes,
career,
right,
told me, Antonella, that's not good. Just
right, right,
music is not good. And
right.
so he was the one who put me into a place of having to think about differently about,
Yes,
what do I do? How do I do things? And
yes,
how can I do things better? Right.
yeah,
And so it's been quite a journey for me as well. And there is a lot of shifting in the mindset
yes,
that, of course, in the meanwhile, because you have
that,
to go from being the concert pianist
yes,
to being the person who can do pretty much anything, who is
yeah.
curious about anything, who is still
Right,
learning.
that's right.
Um,
That's exactly it.
yes. How was that for you? How this
Well, I
happened?
find that that's the same thing. I found that when I was singing just opera, in Europe, that's all I did. I mean, I was singing sometimes, 4 different roles in 2 weeks. So you would have to shift, but I wasn't doing anything else. That was my main focus. So that was just it.
Yeah.
But then when I came back, I found myself like, wow, I didn't have just a work the next day. So I found myself thought, what other business can I do that is sort of part-time that I can still sing, do my lessons and coaching. So I started doing working for a big catering company where they actually would use me with singing sometimes. They were like, "Oh, Christina, can you sing an aria or can you sing Happy Birthday?" Of course, it's always Happy Birthday. Or you sing or you perform and you do it. And then I learned a lot about food. I learned a lot about presentation and just about sort of, I think the whole thing for me was just sort of being with people and this sort of
Yeah.
whole senses thing that people were smelling the food and then you were eating the
Yeah.
food and then the music involved with it. And that's when I decided, what about this dining with the diva, where you go into people's homes and usually I'm cooking there with my husband and we're either making the lasagna or we bring it or we show how to make a fresh like pesto in the mortar and pestle, or
Mm.
I talk about the food, I show how to make the fresh pasta. But then after and often we'll sit at a large table and then they'll have, maybe 15 to 20 people, friends will come. They'll have a really beautiful community. We do a lot of this in Denmark where it's really wonderful there because the Danes love this whole idea of hygge, which is hyggelig, which is this very sort of, it's hard to
Yeah.
translate in English, but it means cozy and warm. And they love to sit around and talk. So, you'd set the table and they'd eat and they'd have the antipasti and that sort of thing. And then Lars and I would start our concert of, so I'd have to transition from making food, then, oh, I'm the singer now. And
Yeah.
then I have to sort of relate with the guests. And then I'd sing my opera portion, sort of the big diva stuff at the end with the gown, and I'd switch, I'd change, we'd make a homemade tiramisu. And then I would often sit around with we would afterwards we would chat and we would really spend a lot of time with the guests after, and it was quite something because a lot of artists just sort of come in, do their thing, and they leave. That's what they had experienced. But here we were really
Yeah.
sort of embedding ourselves with everyone and sort of creating this beautiful evening where they were experiencing food and just sort of sort of company and getting to know us as artists and people. And it really broke down the barriers, and I thought that was
Yeah.
quite important. And that's why I think it's so important, because people say, oh, I've never heard an opera, I don't like opera, I don't like it. But that's why I start slowly with some opera, Broadway, jazz,
Mm.
even some sort of contemporary things. And then at the end I hit them with the big opera, and by then they're sort of astounded. And I think also
Yeah.
they're hearing a live voice that's not amplified, very close to them, like almost a few feet away, sitting in a chair. So it's quite impactful. There's quite profound sometimes, the reaction, because they haven't heard a voice that close to them. In an opera house it's different. You have the orchestra, which is an astounding experience, but a human voice that's very close to someone is a different experience. So I've just found that trying to be open and sort of have my mind be open to what is possible with this, and it's gone in a lot of different directions, of who we've performed for and where we've performed. And I don't sort of try to put limits on myself, because I find that I'm growing as an artist just with all the things that I do in this world that we live in now. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I had a very similar experience in Germany. I
Okay.
I had when I was living over there, I started giving small concerts, house concerts,
Yeah,
and it was beautiful because people would have dinner. I mean, I
yeah,
would have dinner with them, and then we
sure.
would play. I would play the piano and explain the pieces and answer
Yep,
questions and have a sort of conversation with them. It was quite interesting. And then I
sure.
had wine concerts where I went in different restaurants.
Yes.
We had a digital grand piano. It was red. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Red grand piano and like wine, right?
Yeah.
And then so we would have this exchange with the audience directly. So
Yes.
there was wine tasting. They had a special dinner, and then I would play some piano pieces that were related somehow,
Yeah.
to the food or to the wine, and
Yes.
I mean, it was very interesting because it changed my perception, my own perception as an artist of the
Hmm.
audience. And so
Yes.
the audience was no longer far from me, right? So I was
Correct.
not on the stage and the audience was on the other side, but I
Yes.
was part of that experience, and
Yes.
it was very beautiful. So yeah, so I see, we chatted from time to time, but I see a
Yes.
lot of personal growth in your in the conversations that we had, and in the way that you usually interact on social media. How is it for you? How important is it for you?
But thank you for that question. I think it's very important. I think it's of course, as I'm getting older, the sort of personal growth, just as part of my whole body, mind, spirit thing. I find that that is important. I mean, I meditate. I've started a meditation practice, which I hadn't ever done in my whole life. I started it last year, just very simple, like 10, 15 minutes in the morning. But I find it really helps me to sort of calm, because I find, being an artist and living in these times, and I do a lot of commuting to New York. And I find it's very anxiety sort of ridden time with just commuting and traffic and not
Yeah,
knowing what's sort of going to go on with the future and things like that. Things are up in the air. So I find that it kind of helps me bring me back, sort of neutral. So I find that I'm sort of really working on. I've been working on, sort of I go to the gym. I started swimming, so I started that. I hadn't swum in years, and I thought it would be good for my breath control as a singer.
yeah,
So doing that and just sort of um, just having being very mindful about things, trying to be very sort of not as judgmental and as quick, because I can be very, as artists we can be very bang, but I'm
yeah,
trying to calm myself and just sort of think about things and just really live sort of very in the now and not try to get too anxious. But I mean, it doesn't always work. God knows I can get very fiery in a minute, but I try to, sort of calm that with just sort of the things I do throughout the day that keeps me going. And teaching is a part of that actually helps, because I teach a lot of not really small children, but I would say one of my youngest is 7 or 8. But I find teaching children is quite, inspirational, because they're very much, in the moment, and they're very childlike, and it's just very interesting to sort of teach that age. And I find that it can be quite, it takes a lot of energy, but it's quite rewarding, to get that back. So I think in all of my students, I'm getting something from them, because I'm teaching quite at least probably
yeah,
26 students a week, I would say, right now,
yeah.
in different places. So, but it's quite rewarding, and I've learned a lot from that experience to bring it to
Yeah.
my own performing as well. Yeah,
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 I teach. I usually teach, 3 years old and up,
yeah,
and
sure.
so 3 years old tend to be very, very energetic.
Oh, that's a whole different, yeah. That's difficult. Yeah, that's not, yeah.
um, I measured the attention span of one of my 3 years old last year. It was 45 seconds, and
Right,
then
right. Yeah, yeah,
the
sure.
attention was gone.
Right, of
But
course. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Yeah,
yeah,
very true.
I started quite a while ago, actually, to meditate regularly. And every single morning I do my
Sure.
20 to 30 minutes
Yeah.
meditation, and I do the mindfulness practice, and
Yeah.
mindful breathing, mindful
Yes, the
eating,
breathings. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because I
mindful
also find, yeah, because I also find that we're on our phones so much. We're on so much of the electronics. And I find myself, I am too. And very different, because I wasn't raised with it. I'm not the age where I had an iPad or iPhone.
Yeah,
And then you have these iPhones and everything. And it's just where we're sort of stimulated all the time. And I'm trying at night to sort of say, okay, don't want the blue light, put it away before you go to bed. But it's not always easy, because we're sort of, you were scrolling or we're looking for things. And I find myself, okay, just read at night, try to calm yourself down. It's not easy. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's harder to be off of the devices. But that's another big thing, not to pick it up in the morning. I try to do my morning sort of ritual things, and then get into the day, Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
found that basically we never stop growing. I mean, if
Yeah.
when I was maybe 20, I thought, well, if you're an adult, you're an adult,
Right.
and then you don't need to do
Sure.
anything else. But that's not true. And I
No.
realized that there is a lot to correct, and
Yes.
and the thing, and you probably see that in students as well, when you correct a student,
Yeah.
they usually don't even realize that they're making a mistake.
Sure.
And they might repeat that in the same way, and they're
Yeah.
convinced that they're correcting it. So you,
Yes.
from a different point of view, you see
Yes.
that, you
Very
observe
true.
that, you keep correcting them, and they keep repeating that mistake.
Right.
And so what I realized is that often in life, we basically do the same thing.
Yes.
So we keep repeating mistakes because we don't have a third point. So
Yeah.
of view.
That's very true.
And if you would tell me that I'm making a mistake, I would never listen to you, because
Right.
I would think I'm doing everything right. So what is Christina telling me?
Right.
You know, and the same is true for students. The same is true for, for everybody.
Yes.
As an adult, when we go through life. And so what I personally have learned is to give myself a really honest opinion about what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
I'm brutally honest with myself. I can be, the person who is giving me the harsh truth.
Right.
And that helped me growing. It is almost like I see myself at the end of the day. I look back at what I've done, what I've said, what I wrote, and whatever happened. And I look back and I try to look at that from a different point of view, as a different person looking at what I did. And so I pass, and then I pass everything through my AI. I say, okay, so I did this and this and this and this.
Right.
So give me your honest opinion about what could have done better.
Right.
And so I'm learning to correct myself, because that's the only way that we can actually grow and we correct ourselves.
Exactly.
How do you correct students? I mean, when your students make a mistake over and over again, how do you do that?
Well, I think it depends on the age, and I think it depends the age of them. I think it depends on their sort of their approach to music, what they're working on. I try to do it very gently. I think because I've taken lessons since I was 12, and I still take lessons now. I've always taken voice lessons, so I've had hundreds of thousands of lessons, hundreds of thousands, but I've had so many lessons with different teachers and great masters and really fantastic people. But I feel that you could always do it in a very sort of gentle way, that you don't have to be too harsh, because I find that a lot of everyone's quite, I think ever since the COVID, a lot of the students I teach were at home during COVID, either if they were in third grade or fourth grade or younger or older. I find that they were at home for 2 years online. And so now that they're back in person, these years, that it's a little, you have to sort of approach it a little gingerly, because sometimes they can be, everyone's quite sensitive, and you have to use the right sort of words to sort of, help them. And I think there's ways and tools you can use for students, to just sort of help them along the way, and to sort of discover it for themselves as well. Because I know it's always hard to take criticism, but I still coach and I take lessons. So I'm still trying, because when I transitioned to mezzo, you just don't say, oh, I'm a soprano, let me sing mezzo. I mean, there is a lot of work to do into the voice. And so I've taken, I take lessons and I coach. So, I'm always learning something new, whether it be a new technique or a way to do it. So I learn through my students. So it's just interesting to sort of be very open as a teacher, but to bring the knowledge to your students, but to also have a dialogue, I think, is important between them, no matter who you're teaching or what the music is. But I do tend to sort of guide them. I know if they're having vocal issues or things, I too tend to guide them in the more classical tradition. I do tend to use some Italian art songs and things that will help if they're having issues with the break in the voice and things, because it's hard to do that with a real lot of pop music. I find, I could be completely wrong, but for my approach, I find if I go from a general sort of more, bel canto technique, like I was taught, it helps along on all, in all genres, I find.
Right. I always think that students don't make mistakes on purpose.
Of course.
I wasn't making mistakes on purpose, but what my teachers never really understood back in the days, right, when I was
Sure.
taking lessons, is that I couldn't understand at times what they were explaining, because they were saying, yeah, do that this way, and then yeah,
Sure.
this way how, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think for voices, even it's more difficult,
Yes.
because
Yes.
how do you explain how to move the voice or what to
Right.
do with your
Right.
body?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, with piano can be a little bit easier, but what
Sure.
I found was that I never received a direct instruction about what was wrong exactly,
Yes.
so that I could correct it.
Sure.
And so I'm very mindful with my students about that, and I
Yeah.
always tell them, okay, so what is wrong? Your finger is wrong. The rhythm is wrong. So let's correct just a little thing. Yeah.
Sure.
Today I had a few students. They were playing. They had to play a quarter note and 2 8 notes. So they were just playing that in the same rhythm. Dum
Yeah.
bum bum. Right. I was like, okay, so that's wrong. Right. This is the
Sure.
thing that's wrong. Let's correct just the rhythm. So let's clap just the rhythm, so that
Correct.
once you internalize that, then you
Yes.
can actually
Yeah.
correct also your playing.
Yeah.
What
Very true.
happened? I have the sunset
Oh,
on
of
this
course. Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
And it's
Exactly. Yeah.
obviously blinding me, but so that's
Yeah.
fine. And I think that many students should actually make sure that they don't listen to harsh criticism when the teacher's
Right.
being too harsh,
Right.
or not explaining things correctly. Sometimes it's not the student's fault. Sometimes it's
Right. Of
just
course.
they're having a not so good teacher.
Yeah.
I say not so
Right.
mindful teacher for them.
Right.
So then
Yeah. That's very
yeah,
true.
yeah,
Very true.
yeah,
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
yes. So how do you combine all those things together in life? I mean, we both do a lot of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a lot of projects going on, and a lot of things going on in my life overall, and I feel that sometimes if I look at my to-do list,
Yeah.
it's endless.
Right. 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 Yeah.
How do you coordinate everything you do so that
I mean, I know number one, first, I mean, I know you have children. I don't have children. I mean, I have a beautiful stepdaughter, but she's 22. So, but I don't have children. So that's a little bit, I think it's a little different. So, but I have, myself and my husband. But I think also what I've been key now into is that I wake up very early. I wake up early to get things done because I find if I start doing them, past 9, or if I have to go work and teach, or I have a gig or something that I have to do, I find that if I get up very early and start the day, I mean, sometimes I like to do like 5:30. Now, sometimes it's not possible. It's just I'm too exhausted from teaching or being out singing and things like that. But I like to start early so then I have a few hours, like either working out, going swimming, doing what I need to do. Then I can have the time to vocalize, warm up, then go and teach, because I teach at least now about 4 days a week, and they're in different places. One's about 25 miles from here. One is in New York, in almost Long Island, which is a real truck to get out there. So I find I'm in the car a lot, a lot. So I'll use it, like Lars and myself will listen to a lot of different sort of interesting things online, either music or learning things, or different lectures, things like that. So we use the time in the car, which is great. But I find getting up early and just trying to do a little bit of something, even if it's 20 minutes, get it done. Not saying, oh, I'm going to exercise for an hour. Let me do 20 minutes. Let me vocalize and learn this piece of music, because I have to sing a solo, because I have a paid church position in Doyle's, is somewhere like about 45 minutes from myself. So I have early
Mhm.
Sundays now that I have to go sing. So I'm, working on that music and things. So that's new, because I hadn't had a church position in years, like years. And now I'm an
Yeah,
alto. So that's a whole different thing. And sort of leading them and then singing
yeah,
solos and things like that. So it's just a matter of planning out. I think planning it, making sure, giving a few moments to each
yeah.
thing. And I think that helps. Yeah, I think that's a good way to sort of balance it, or else it's just too overwhelming, I think, at times. you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I have all my, I call the subjects.
Yeah. Sure.
No
Sure.
projects. It's like in school, you have the subjects, right? And then
Yeah,
I have my
exactly.
schedule. And so every single day I try to go over all the different projects that
Sure.
I'm working at and do at least one or two things out of this
Yeah.
list. And then add the rest for the next day. I really literally write down. I don't write on the computer. I prefer to write on paper, all those things, so that I
Sure.
can, go
Yeah.
into the next step, right away, turn
Completely.
pages,
Yeah.
and I think that, it is that uh, what we might call the modern Renaissance, right?
Yes,
Where
exactly.
we do a lot of things and we are curious about a lot of things and we keep
Yes,
learning a lot of new
that's true.
things. So
I think that's the big thing. Yeah,
yes.
for
So
sure.
now, when you meet a now the idea of the opera singer is the
Yeah,
idea of the person who is on stage and then sings here and there, and then that's it, right?
yeah,
In the mind of the audience. But the truth is very different. So when they ask me, where do you play? I look at the person and say, I don't know, everywhere.
right,
When
right,
they ask me,
right, right, right.
why are you playing? I was like, everywhere, at your
Sure.
house, my house. I don't know.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but so sometimes I receive those strange questions, or sometimes they idealize you as the pianist, and I say, well, no,
Sure.
I'm not just the pianist. I'm many
Sure.
other things too, and so I don't. I prefer not to label myself as a pianist or as
Yeah.
just a pianist. I am a pianist, and I'm many other things at the same time.
Yeah.
And how would you define a singer today?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, I think that's a different, I think it was very different. I mean, when I was coming up, how I thought of it as how I think of it now. Because, coming up and, and being in San Francisco and working, I mean, I was so blessed to be able to work with Joan Sutherland and Renata Scotto and these great artists. I mean, right there in front of me. And so you had these amazing artists that I sort of, loved my whole life and listened to their recordings. And so here they are and you're working with them. And that's all you really did in my
yeah,
20s, 30s. And then, things sort of, you grow up, life happens and things sort of shift and you think you're going to be just going this direction. Now, some people do.
yeah,
Some people, I know a lot of people who just have that career and they're in it full bore and they have a very big, glorious career. That's fantastic. And that's what they do all the time. They just go from house to house. And that's fantastic. I had some of that. It wasn't exactly how I thought it would be, but I think in the, and it never is. So I think in the way that you have to adjust is to singers have to be so much now. I think they have to
yeah,
be actors and they have to be almost poets. They have to be able to do a lot on stage. I even knew when I was in Germany, a lot of the directors, it was very new, these productions to me. It wasn't your traditional
yeah,
sort of tradition. It was very new and sort of these avant-garde productions of Norma and things. So you have to be very open, I think, and willing to be innovators. I know that there's so many great artists and opera singers who are innovating and doing jazz, or they're innovating with choirs, or they're doing different things. And I think it's opening it
yeah,
up also for people to experience it because we need a younger audience. The audience that's there, we have to open it up to
yeah,
more of an audience. And I think just going in and saying, oh, all I sing is big opera, that sometimes can be limiting. So I think if you open it up, I know so many of my colleagues are doing so many new things, or they have their own shows that they create
yeah,
because they want to create something, they want to do something with music or with poetry or with a different type of instruments. So I think it's fascinating to be able to really be open-minded and not just say, oh, I'm just going to sing opera arias with a big orchestra. I'm willing to innovate and be really flexible with, and to almost like fuse different styles together, no matter what that would be, and really be open to that. I know I'm actually learning some pieces by a sort of a modern composer that they're in German and they're about Japanese woodcuts. And it was, yeah, very interesting. Lars found this composer in Denmark, and I'm learning them when it's with going to be with piano next year. And there are Japanese woodcuts based on it in German, but they're very beautiful. Not something I would think I would sing, but I listened to them and I thought they're lovely. And I'll
Yeah.
just, sort of figure out a way. I think we have to be very open to, something new, what we could possibly go into. And I think that's a sort of keeping an open mind and an open voice and saying, what can I learn, from this, from the traditions that I have, but also keep it, put it into new works that are there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the thing that I think is about musicians is that we, in the past, we gave
Yeah.
the power and control to, I don't know, the agent, the
Sure.
concert manager, the opera
Yeah.
house,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
whoever else had the decision power.
Yeah.
And right now, I think we would have to take the power back and
Yeah.
say, okay, so I am the musician. I am creating whatever.
Yes.
If you
Yes.
want me, that's what I'm doing.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
and other than that, I'm doing my own things. So
Yes.
I have a
Yes.
little bit more control over our own life, because
Yes.
until a few years ago, and actually until probably before the pandemic, it was always, the musician was the one who was hired to do
Yes.
something.
Right.
And
Right.
right now, I feel that there are more people actually becoming their own boss, and
Yes. Yeah. Very
taking
true.
control over their own
Oh, very
life.
true. Oh, yes. Very true. I find I have so many colleagues that are doing that. They're touring with different amazing works and sort of things that they've come up with, and they're really controlling their own career, and they're being
Yeah.
their own manager. A lot of them have managers or agents, but then a lot of them don't. They're self-managing and they're finding their own gigs like I do, and sort of creating their own ideas and experiences and sort of putting it out there. I think before, I'm speaking for myself, we always thought, oh, well, if I'm not just singing at the big opera houses, then I'm failing, or I'm not doing
Right.
it. I don't look it. And then there was a little bit, I will say it, there was some shame in that. Or I felt that there was some shame where, oh, I'm not at the Met, or I'm not at, lyric opera, or I'm not at these big houses. And so what am I? Am I still doing this that I wanted to do since I was 12? And I think, no, we have to be very powerful and say, no, I am my own boss. I am my own creative spirit, and I can, do these things. And if I sing there, that's great. And the people that do, fantastic. But there's also other ways to show your voice, your creativity, and to
Yeah.
find new pathways. And I think that's big, because I think for a while it was hard to say, oh, I'm a singer plus I teach, or I'm a singer and I cook, or I work here, or I'm also in real estate, or I'm in financial planning, because now that we have to do so many things in order to create the life that we want. And I think that we have to be very open and vocal about it, and be very proud and powerful, I think, with it. For sure.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. And I think that it was just embedded in our training, right?
Yes.
That we had to
Of
be
course.
that way. I don't
Sure.
know. I
Sure.
was trained in a period where my teachers were telling me that I had to participate in so many competitions and
Sure. Of
win those
course.
competitions
Sure.
in order
Sure.
to have a career. Right
Yep.
now,
Yep.
that might be true, partially.
Sure.
If you win a
Sure.
big competition,
Of
you're
course.
still, getting
Yes.
a
Yeah.
lot of concerts.
Sure.
But the real competition is out there on social media.
Yes.
You can use your own YouTube channel to create
Yes.
your own
Oh, very
audience.
much.
You can have your own Instagram account and
Yes.
have a big audience over there, and then
Of
you
course.
can
Yeah.
create your own crowd, you could create your own
Yep.
concerts, and organize things by yourself, because now the world is online, and
Yes.
I
Everything.
think
Yes.
yes, and I think it's so it gave us the power back
Yes.
as
Very true.
musicians. Yeah,
Very
yeah,
true.
yeah.
Because I know some great singers who, I mean, they have great Instagram and TikTok and Facebook accounts, and then you see what they're doing. They put all their performances on, which is amazing, because now we record everything, and a lot of the great singers are also doing, showing vocal technique online, or showing lessons online, or offering lessons online, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it's opened up a whole new world with Facebook. I mean, I know when I do my Dining with the Diva lives, I love to connect. It's my way of connecting with an audience because I like a live venue. So I
Yeah.
love to interact with people, be up there, cook something. It's also my way of performing. I may not be singing, but I'm still performing, and I'm sort of out there, having an audience and interacting and sort of sharing what I do. And I think that's important. And this is so fantastic, having the social
Yeah.
media, and you have to nowadays, you have to be your own sort of
Yes.
manager, sort of putting it out there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can ignore social media, but
Right. Right. Yeah.
then the audience on social media will ignore you, and so that's
Right. Right.
if you can afford that, that's fine.
Right.
But
Yeah.
other than
That's
that,
very true.
yes, it is. It is also a joy for me, for example, to share what I know with whoever is out there. And
Sure.
I don't know most of my subscribers are on my channel, but
Right.
it is a joy to actually be helpful to them. And
Yeah.
I know many people might not be able to maybe afford lessons, and then they
Sure.
can take that, they can learn from me, from you,
Yes.
from whoever is online, and get all the information they need
That's
without
right.
having the struggle.
Yes. Very
How
true.
should I? How
Yeah.
should I afford the lesson with Christina, right? Or
Right.
how should I
Right.
afford the lesson
Right.
with Antonella? So they can just
Sure.
learn this little bit
Yeah. Yeah.
with us.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Very important.
yeah,
Yeah. For sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So tell me a little bit. So we are going to Florence, right?
Yes. Yes.
In July. No, sorry, not in July.
August. Yeah.
In August. We're going in August. We can go in July as well, but we're
Yes.
going in August. And so, what do you like about Italy, Italian music in
Oh.
general?
Yeah. I think, well, I got started early because I know when I worked with Claudio Pinza, I went to Italy my first time, I think it was 19 or 20, and we went to Oderzo, which is in the Treviso area. And I worked with
Yeah,
her and Enzo Ferrari, great coach. I mean, astounding, one of the best opera coaches. And I went there for about 6 weeks. We stayed in this beautiful Albergo Pustumia hotel in Oderzo. And the food, first of all, it was the food, of course, the food, and I just loved the town. And we walked everywhere. And I just have great memories of at night after having beautiful, like the aglio olio, or we had the beautiful pesto, or the vitello tonato was big in that, just such great food. And all the meals were sort of paid for there, and we would practice our singing, and we would do concerts, and then we would come back at night, we would play cards. It was just like a beautiful time. I remembered.
awesome.
Um, Beautiful time. We had no social media. We didn't have the phone. So everybody was talking, and we played cards, and we went out and walked and had the beautiful watermelon at night in the stands where they'd cut the
Yeah.
melon because it was very hot. But I just so love the culture. I love just the whole, just everything about the food and the people and just the lifestyle of it. I just loved it. So I was there twice, and then I went back many times, and I was in Ischia. I was performing
Mm,
there, and I did a program. I did something in Tuscany, bel canto there, and then I also sang in Le Marche in
nice.
and in that area. I stayed for like 6 weeks. I was covering Mental Lescaut. So I was there for quite some time by myself in an Airbnb, and I just loved the area, the whole beautiful, it's a very different. Le Marche and the Abruzzo region is very different.
Yeah.
So and then I've spent a lot of time in Rome, a lot of time in Venice, and then Firenze and Florence. So I just love it. There's just something magical about it. I always have. And I haven't been back in a while because since we've been doing a lot of concerts in Denmark, that's where I've spent the past few summers, and I love Denmark. It's amazing, but Italy's a whole other place, and it's a magical place. The music, I sang a lot of Italian opera. I sang a lot of Italian opera. I love the language, and I adore the music. Bellini and Donizetti, and I sang some Mozart operas in Italian, but I just was just sort of seduced by it. And probably when Miss Pinza, I would go in the summertime. They had a beautiful place along the Italian Riviera in Ventimiglia,
Yeah.
which is up
Oh,
from
awesome.
like Monaco. Yeah. So we spent like some time there, and they had this little house like on the apartment on the rocks. And then they would go swimming, and I was just overwhelmed, I think, because I was young. I was like 20, 21, 22. And it
Yeah.
just sort of was imprinted on me at that point, because I didn't grow up in sort of an Italian cooking family, any of that. My mom was a
Yeah.
teacher, my father had been a scientist, so I just sort of grew to love the cuisine and sort of started to watch how they would make
Right.
risotto and things, and I just became obsessed and watching videos and learn and going and working in different restaurants and watching the chefs. And yeah, I till this day I still, I'm just obsessed with the cuisine and everything about it. So I'm thrilled to be going to Firenze, there and sort of experiencing the whole sort of culture around it. Because I think it's important to sort of experience the food and the music and the wine and just the whole surroundings. It
Yeah.
helps you as an artist and a singer. I think it to sort of imbue you with the whole sort of experience.
I think it's the entire lifestyle in Italy
Yes,
that
of course.
it's set up to,
Yeah.
make you an artist, sort of.
Yes, yeah, that's
Because
very true. Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, the little towns, you walk everywhere. It's more simple life. The food is just, I can't go on. I mean, I remember being in Ischia, and the food on the island of Ischia and the lemons, and it's just, it's quite something. So I think it's just and there's many places I haven't seen, but I've always wanted to go to Sicilia, different places, yeah. And so I'm just thrilled to be a part of this. I think it's going to be a great experience, to just
yeah,
immerse in there. Yeah. Yeah.
so we enjoy the doing nothing, basically.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
The more we can do nothing, the better.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
the Italian mindset.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that the overall mindset is not towards working more, but
No,
taking
correct.
more time free to just enjoy life. That's
Isn't it like the dolce far niente?
Dolce far niente. Yes, perfect.
Yeah, it's that exactly. It's the dolce far niente. But it is. It's that very beautiful, peaceful, just sort of. It is. It's wonderful. It's really fantastic, and I think we could learn a lot here, because I find here, especially where I live, very close to New York, and in this area of millions of people, that we're in a constant state of rush, fast rush all the time. And even I find myself having to say, you just slow it down, down, because we're always sort of, where's the next thing? I have to wake up. I have to get in the car. I have to go. I have to beat the traffic. And it's gotten quite wild, I think, out here, because I commute to New York a lot. So it's quite intense. So it'll be lovely to be in a very much more calm, more peaceful place. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's for students, it would be nice to have a place where they are not rushed to do something, but they can just enjoy the music, enjoy the lessons, enjoy the surroundings, take a walk, go downtown Florence.
Fantastic. Like have a gelato, because they have the great gelaterias there. I mean, such great ones. Or and I love also the famous bistecca alla Fiorentina, the great steak.
That's great.
Yeah, that's big. But that's very true. I found when I studied in Italy and had the time there, like everything just changed. You just sort of relax, the body sort of calms down, and you're able to sing and sort of learn in a better environment, because you're really not stressed and you're really enjoying it. So it's great experience. Yeah.
Okay, so Christina, where can people find you?
Well, I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook, Christina Lamberti. I'm also on Instagram. So I'll put my sort of credentials. I have a website that's it's Christina Lamberti Mezzo.com, just Christina Lamberti Mezzo, my name. And then we also have diningwiththediva.com, which is sort of our website for our Dining with the Diva experiences as well. But a Facebook is also a great place to, get in touch with me, Messenger, anything like that. Email, it's clclamberti@gmail. So a lot of ways to get in touch with me.
So I will put everything down in the description of the video, and so you can send me everything you want to put in there, and then I will add it. And then I thank you so much for being with me tonight here.
Grazie mille, Antonella. Yeah.
Grazie a te. And we will wait for Florence.
We'll wait for Florence. That's right, because we're not in the same town, but
no,
but we will see. Not yet, sweetheart. but we'll definitely ci vediamo in Firenze. So for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Christina.
Okay,
Bye.
sweetheart. Have a great night. All the best. Take
Bye.
care. Ciao. Ciao, ciao.